A contractor sees one view of a budget and the client, but the developer looks at a budget and thinks about all his own metrics that the contractor does not know, nor does he even see it. But, at the end of the day, a developer has to think about how important that construction budget is and strategize and do all the due diligence for that. Please do your homework on the project.
This is Maestro Minute, the show that discusses all things real estate, sharing interviews with the most successful people in the industry. Hear from their perspective and what they are doing to achieve success. Get exclusive tips on how you can also succeed in real estate. Maestro Minute is brought to you by Maestro Development. Here's your host, Nareg Muradian.
Hey everybody, welcome to the Maestro Minute. I'm your host, Nareg Muradian, and I'm super excited today. We have a special guest, a good friend of mine I've known for a long time, Steven Yetemian. Welcome to Maestro Minute, buddy.
Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Today, I'd like to bring to you guys some experience and knowledge about the pre-construction world, about cost control, construction market value, different things happening in the industry related to cost. So Steven is an expert in that, so I wanted to make sure that we could bring him in and he could share his story and some of his knowledge to you all. So don't forget to like and subscribe, as we always say. Put your comments as we have a conversation and we'll get them addressed. If there's anything we missed, let us know. But having said that, Steven, good to have you.
Thank you. Thank you.
How's it going?
Good. I appreciate that introduction. That was made me feel good about myself to start this podcast.
I think you do bring a lot of value on kind of the nuts and bolts and construction detailing as well as estimating. What's the difference between like the contractor's budget and like a development budget?
Sure.
How do you know the difference? What's the difference?
So there's a big difference to that. I've said this many times before to people, is that a contractor sees one view of a budget and the client, but the developer looks at a budget and thinks about all his own metrics that the contractor does not know, nor does he even see it. So a big part of the role of a cost management team is to ensure that the developer budget is, his metrics meet what he needs to have as far as profitability.
What type of metrics? Like what specific items?
Absolutely. So obviously, when a developer gets a budget, he's looking at different things. He's looking at his hard costs, his soft costs, his rental rates, and then it all needs to calculate to a specific IRR that's a specific profitability, basically, for that project. So all these metrics, the contractor's a big piece of it, but the contractor's just giving you one portion of it. There's so much more to it than that. And one thing that I've always relished on my career is making sure that a developer understands the differences, because I've been in that side, and I've seen where some developers will just take a contractor budget and go with it and just run with it. And I'm not saying that a contractor doesn't know how to budget. I think there's some amazing contractors out there that I've worked with that I've seen amazing stuff from them. I've seen budgets where they've provided so much detail, but there's also ones that don't. Because at the end of the day, contractors looking at a napkin and using some historical data that may work, but may not, because, the contractor is looking at, okay, I want to make sure, I'm going to make fee and I want to continue business. So there may be a strategy that goes with that. They may come back and say, well, I gave you a number, but it's not working anymore. He's not thinking 2 years ahead. He's thinking about now, he or she. But, at the end of the day, a developer has to think about how important that construction budget is and strategize and do all the due diligence for that. So if I just take a hard bid number and I say, hey, what is this building is going to cost me? The contractor can absolutely give you a number and they can provide that service. But are they thinking about all the development? Are they thinking about all the possible problems that may arise? Probably not, because they don't want to give you a super high budget because you may not even use them, right? So there's strategies involved that I've learned throughout my career that, yes, it's great to get backup, to utilize good contractors to get budgets, but you also have to do your due diligence on this portion of your work to make sure that the budget you're using is absolutely correct. And
So
it's
how
not.
do you, I'm sure you've run into a lot of situations where you have a lot of projects or potential projects
Yeah.
with a developer and it doesn't pencil out, right?
Sure, sure.
What does that mean, it doesn't pencil out? What are some of the things you see that make it not make sense financially?
Sure. I think it's a so the term doesn't pencil obviously means that there is no profit in the project. At the end of the day, with all the metrics that I mentioned earlier, the profitability is non-existent. It's not there. Or the threshold to the profitability of the developer is not to their standards. So a lot of what happens, and I know this because when you're working for a developer, it's always a battle between myself, acquisitions, the guy that's in charge of setting the rental rates. All these budgets mesh to meet that profitability. When a construction cost is so high, doesn't make sense to actually build it.
Do you see a lot of deals come through from brokers that are not evaluated properly
Oh,
so they can get the deal?
absolutely. That is one of the biggest challenges that I used to face. And there's a lot of good developers out there that see through that. And I'm not saying all brokers are like that. I know that some brokers will do that because at the end of the day, they want to sell the deal. They want to be able to show you that, hey, it does pencil because I've got contractor ABC that gave me a number and the number works. But, as a construction manager, construction consultant, being the filter for that, the only way you will truly succeed, because I'm telling you, I've seen that so often where I'll see a contractor bid and I'll look at it and I'll do my research on who that contractor is, or even look at the number. And there have been many times where those contractors are either not qualified to do the work or they are way too small and the number's wrong.
Right.
But again, like I said, it's a tool for them to sell to a developer, and that's where that filter really comes in.
What do you think is makes a good contractor on these type of developments? Like when you look at these contractors and you evaluate them,
Yeah.
what are some of the things that you like about them or don't like? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So a big part of my time when I was working for a developer was hiring contractors. And a lot of things that stood out to me, and I say this all the time, is please do your homework on the project. When you interview for a project and you actually spend time to present what you're going to present, your findings, present your budget, whatever it is, spend the time to really do your homework and impress your developer. Show them that you've actually looked at the project, that you've thought about all the risks on the project. And I kid you not, I've hired contractors because of that. I've spent time looking at the numbers, and the numbers are what they are. But it's a commitment. It's such a big commitment for a developer or an owner to actually spend time to really invest all this money and time into a project. You want to make a great decision on that. So make sure that they've spent the time to do the research. I've been on actual presentations where I'd get a few presentations and they look okay, and then all of a sudden I'm wowed because a contractor comes in and they've got tons of work done. They've evaluated where they're going to mobilize. They've thought of all the risks, and it doesn't mean a lot. I truly don't think that as a contractor and spending time to prep for a meeting like that doesn't take much effort. I think that's part of the process. But at the end of the day, that's just one thing. There's a big portion of it that means, is this contractor have a good reputation? As far as your references, I check references. I call people. I will absolutely call the references. And then if you don't have references, I will ask around. As you know, this is a small circle. This is a small industry. A lot of people know each other. And as your reputation grows, as you do construction and you're a contractor, you build, people talk, right? Whether it's an architect, whether it's an engineer or another developer, they all talk. I have actually spoken to some references where they've told me that you should avoid this contractor. So, and we've avoided that. I've been in that situation where I've taken that information to heart and said, yes, we're 100%
Yeah,
avoiding it.
and it depends on what industry too, right?
Yeah.
Government or public works.
Yeah, absolutely.
Or healthcare. What are some of the things you do to like maintain your budget to make sure that you're always on budget, right?
Sure.
'Cause I know there's a lot of projects that go over budget for various reasons, changes in scope, delays in schedule. You know, it could be a million reasons, but like, what do you do to make sure projects are on budget?
Call a spade of what it is. Change orders are reality. You know, people tend to shy away from them, and if anyone tells you I don't have any change orders on project, I don't believe them. I truly think it's part of the process, but to manage a budget, to make sure that your budget doesn't go over, has to start from the beginning. Has to be where whomever set the budget that actually did the proper due diligence of what I talked about earlier is making sure that you've accommodated for the risks. You've thought about everything. You've made sure that, you know, the budgets, all the risks that go with it. You know, hypothetically, if let's say your soil is bad, hey, was there a soils report when you actually bought the actual, you know, site? Did you do your due diligence? Did you think about that risk? Because that's a big risk, and that's one of the things that are red flags when you're actually looking at a site. But
so when you have a project, you already have the budget,
Yeah.
and you're already in construction.
yeah,
What do you do to make sure that you don't exceed those budget items?
Sure. I think you obviously have to set the tone. You have to make sure that, you know, the contractor knows that, you know, as the construction manager, as the consultant there, you want to make sure that they are aware of the tone, and you're not, you know, this project has a set budget. Change orders, obviously, if it's fair, it's fair. But, you know, every little change can't necessarily be, you know, a change order because of the time it takes to actually process it. But, you know, other than that, I think, you know, managing a project is a big undertaking, and budget is a big part of that as well. So I think setting the tone, making sure you know, you're looking at your draws, you're making sure that the project's on, you know, schedule financially. You're making sure that, you know, the cash flows in line. All these are processes that you know, I've practiced in my time to make sure that contractors aware. But also, you know, projecting ahead, looking at the drawings, thinking about everything, going to the site, spending time to actually show your presence and you know, be aware of what's happening. Think about it. Obviously, you're not going to be able to see through the dirt if, let's say, they find bones under there, right? But, you know, at the end of the day, if you're spending time looking at your drawings and you check a detail and you're working with your architect and your engineers, then maybe there's chances before things are ordered that you can actually catch these issues.
Well, this has been a great interview, Steven.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. This is great information.
Yeah.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
I hope you guys enjoyed our interview. Again, put your comments down below and let us know if you have any questions. And we'll be filming more of these here shortly with more awesome guests similar to Steven with different types of backgrounds. So thanks again for joining Maestro Minute. I'm your host, Arg Meridian. We'll see you in the next video.
Thanks for tuning in to the Maestro Minute podcast. Make sure to rate this podcast if you found it helpful, share it with a friend that could use it, and follow us on all major podcast platforms. The Maestro Minute, powered by Maestro Development.